Welcome to Kieu Dung's channel. If this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with your friends. Today, we invite you to follow the inspiring journey of a single mother, Sung Luyen, and her little daughter, Kieu Dung. Despite the storms and floods, they never give up. Hand in hand, they collect pieces of wood and carefully turn them into small chairs for their modest home. This story is not just about survival, but also about love, determination, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. Stay with us and let their strength warm your heart. The small vegetable garden in front of the thatched house was finally showing signs of life. Tiny sprouts were breaking through the soil, reaching up toward the misty morning sky. Each fragile green shoot carried with it the hopes and dreams of a mother and daughter who had worked tirelessly to cultivate the land. For Sung Luyen, these sprouts were more than food. They were proof that hard work bore fruit, that despite the storms and hardships, life could begin again each morning. Before starting the new day's work, Sung Luyen prepares breakfast for herself and her daughter. Life here is different from many other places. Because the labor is so heavy, people must eat rice in the morning to have enough strength for a long day in the fields. When the food is ready, she sets it neatly on the old wooden table. The meal is simple, just rice and a bowl of soup. It may not be luxurious or abundant, but for them, it is happiness. At her side, her little daughter carefully carries a wooden plank, preparing to use it later to make small chairs for their home. After finishing the meal, Sung Luyen drinks a glass of water to rinse her mouth. Outside, thick clouds cover the mountain peaks, and in the yard, a flock of chicks wander about searching for food. Not wasting a single moment, Sung Luyen takes the rice pot, its bottom still clinging with hardened grains from breakfast. Instead of scrubbing right away, she fills it carefully with water, letting it sit. Slowly, the water seeps into the crust, softening what was once stuck fast, making it easier to clean later. This small, thoughtful act may look ordinary, but it carries wisdom passed down through generations. In the mountains, nothing is wasted, and even the way people wash their pots reveals their patience and respect for what they have. With that done, she turns to the dishes. Her daughter comes close, eager to help, dragging over a small stool to reach the basin. Standing on tiptoe, the little girl stretches her hands into the cool water. Together, mother and daughter begin their quiet rhythm, dipping bowls, scrubbing chopsticks, rinsing cups until each piece gleams under the soft daylight. While their hands work, Sung Luyen's voice works too, teaching. She speaks gently, her words blending with the sound of water splashing. Every task matters, she tells her child. Even the smallest chores keep our home in harmony. A tidy place brings peace to the heart. And when we take care of what we have, life will, in return, take care of us. The girl listens, her bright eyes fixed on her mother, nodding with understanding that seems older than her years. In this simple act of washing dishes, she is learning more than a household chore. She is learning how to live. After finishing with the dishes, Sung Luyen takes a broom made of bamboo twigs and begins sweeping the floor of their small thatched home. Each stroke is slow and steady, lifting away the dust that is gathered from the day. The sound of the broom brushing against the wooden floor blends softly with the gentle patter of rain that has begun falling outside. The raindrops tap against the roof, creating a calm rhythm that fills the quiet space of the house. Not wanting her mother to work alone, little Kieu Dung quickly runs over to help. She picks up a smaller broom, her tiny hands gripping it tightly as she mimics her mother's movements. Though her strokes are uneven, her face glows with pride as she tries her best. Together, mother and daughter sweep side by side, turning the simple act of cleaning into a moment of warmth and togetherness. Once the floor is tidy, Kieu Dung sets her broom aside and heads to the water basin. She dips her small toothbrush into the cool water, preparing to brush her teeth. Her mother watches with a smile, pleased to see her daughter learning to take care of herself. Outside, the rain grows a little heavier, wrapping the humble home in a peaceful melody. For this small family, even the simplest routines, sweeping, brushing, listening to the rain, become treasures of daily life, reminding them that joy can be found in even the quietest of moments. With the morning chores behind them, Sung Luyen and her daughter prepare for the long day ahead. Each of them shoulders a simple bamboo basket, the kind that every family in the mountains uses for carrying firewood, vegetables, or harvests from the fields. The straps, woven from rattan, have already left faint marks on their shoulders from days of hard work, but neither mother nor child complains. Instead, they set out with quiet determination, their bare feet padding along the damp earth as they head toward the upland fields. The sky, though gray with morning mist, begins to clear, and a few shafts of sunlight pierce through the drifting clouds. The rain has stopped for now, leaving behind the fresh scent of wet leaves and soil. Along the narrow path, birds call out from the treetops, as if encouraging them on their way. Their destination is a cassava field, planted many months ago and now ready for harvest. The plants stand tall, their broad leaves spread wide, hiding beneath the earth the tubers that will soon be unearthed. But before any harvesting can take place, the field must first be cleared of the tall grass and weeds that have grown up around the cassava. Only then can the landowner easily dig out the roots. This is the task that Sung Luyen and her daughter have been hired to do today. The work is simple, but far from easy. Sung Luyen bends down, gripping her small hand tool, and begins cutting away the weeds. Each swing requires effort, her body moving in a steady rhythm. Beside her, little Kieu Dung, although small, does her best to help. With both hands, she pulls at the grass, tossing it into small piles. She glances at her mother often, copying her movements, determined not to fall behind. Every so often, Sung Luyen straightens up, wipes the sweat from her brow, and offers her daughter a smile. "You're doing well," she says softly. The encouragement is simple, but to Kieu Dung, it means everything. She beams back, her face shining with pride, and bends down again with renewed energy. As the hours pass, the sound of their work blends with the quiet songs of the forest. The swish of grass being cut, the rustle of leaves, the soft thud of discarded weeds. It becomes a rhythm of its own, a song of labor and love. To an outsider, the task might seem tedious, but for them, it is life itself. Work is not just about survival, it is also about teaching, shaping character, and sharing moments together. For Sung Luyen, these days in the field are lessons in resilience. She wants her daughter to know that even though life in the mountains is hard, it is also beautiful. Hardship teaches strength, labor teaches dignity, and working side by side teaches the bond between mother and child, an unspoken language of care and sacrifice. Kieu Dung listens, not just with her ears, but with her heart. She learns that no matter how small the contribution, every effort matters. Even if her tiny hands cannot cut the thick weeds as fast as her mother's, her willingness to try is what makes her strong. She learns that a family thrives not by wealth, but by working together, step by step, day by day. By midday, the field looks different. Where once there was a tangle of weeds, now the earth is visible, clean and ready. The cassava plants stand tall and clear, their roots ready for the harvesters who will come after. Sung Luyen leans on her tool for a moment, breathing deeply. Her muscles ache, but there is a quiet satisfaction in seeing the work completed. The landowner approaches, inspecting the field. He nods approvingly, pleased with their diligence. From the small pouch at his waist, he takes out the agreed payment, a modest sum of money. To many, it would seem like little, but for Sung Luyen and her daughter, it represents food on the table, oil for their lamp, perhaps even a small treat to brighten the week. As she accepts the payment, she bows slightly in gratitude. She knows the value of every coin, for each one has been earned with sweat and effort. She glances at her daughter, who watches curiously, and places a hand gently on her shoulder. "This," she explains, "is the reward for honest work. Remember, my child, we may not have much, but what we have, we earn with dignity. That is what gives it value." The little girl nods solemnly, absorbing her mother's words. For her, the money is not just money. It is proof that their labor has meaning, that their time and energy contribute to their survival and their happiness. She smiles as she imagines how they will use it, perhaps to buy salt, a bit of dried fish, or maybe some fabric for a new dress one day. As the sun begins to lower, they pack up their baskets once more. The field is behind them, but the lessons linger. Tired yet content, they walk the same narrow path home, their steps light despite the weight of the day. For Sung Luyen, the greatest treasure is not the coins she carries, but the joy of knowing her daughter is learning the values that will guide her long after childhood. Hard work, gratitude, and the quiet happiness found in simple living. For little Kieu Dung, the treasure is the time spent with her mother, working, laughing, learning, and walking together through life's journey. In that moment, beneath the wide sky and along the mountain path, the two are rich in ways the world cannot measure.
As the mother and daughter returned home and began to rest, the skies suddenly poured down heavy rain. Water rushed down the narrow path leading up the mountain, carrying soil and rocks, making the trail slippery. Strong winds shook the trees, bending them, and even brought down tall trunks around their small thatched house. The cracking of breaking wood mixed with the pounding rain and thunder, creating a scene both fierce and frightening. Because the rain was pouring down so heavily, water began to rise and flow right into the small cottage. Seeing this, Sung Luyen quickly slipped on her old raincoat and grabbed a hoe before rushing outside. Under the pounding rain and strong winds, she bent down, digging trench after trench to let the water escape, trying her best to keep her home from being flooded. Her clothes were soaked through, her hands were trembling from the cold, yet her eyes remained determined. After a while, the water finally drained away. She returned inside, washed the mud from her hands and feet, and let out a sigh of relief. Sitting quietly in her humble home, she waited for the storm to pass, preparing herself to begin the work of crafting new chairs.
The mother and daughter began carrying the heavy wooden planks on their backs, secured tightly in their familiar bamboo baskets, slowly making their way along the long, slippery road after the storm. In front of them, a small stream that was usually calm had now turned into a raging flood, water rushing wildly. Sung Luyen rolled up her pants to her knees, then lifted her little daughter into her arms, carefully stepping into the cold, fast-flowing water. The rain was still drizzling, and the wild bushes on both sides of the path had been knocked down by the storm, lying tangled across their way. From time to time, she had to stop,
clearing broken branches before moving forward again. After a difficult stretch, the two of them finally stepped onto a narrow bamboo bridge crossing the stream. The bridge shook with every step, yet they held tightly to each other's hands, determined to make it across and continue their journey.
Finally, after the long and exhausting journey, the mother and daughter arrived at the small house of the village carpenter. Sweat mixed with raindrops still clung to their faces, but they smiled as they were welcomed with a kind look. Sung Luyen carefully set the wooden planks down in front of the porch, then politely asked the carpenter to help craft them into parts for making chairs. The carpenter nodded in agreement, while the little girl stood by his side, her eyes filled with hope and excitement. After offering their heartfelt thanks, the two began their walk home. Though their steps were weary, their hearts were light, filled with the belief that tomorrow new chairs would be completed, bringing them a modest yet meaningful source of income for their simple life.
The carpenter carefully placed each plank onto the workbench and steadily guided the planer along the grain. The sharp sound echoed as the rough layers were shaved away, revealing a smooth, polished surface beneath. The fresh scent of wood filled the air, a sign that these planks were now ready for the next stage of work.
On their way back home, Sung Luyen and her daughter stopped by a small roadside shop. The place was simple, yet filled with tools and household supplies. They headed to the plumbing section, carefully picking out new pipes and a replacement valve for their broken water line at home. The shopkeeper kindly gave them advice and handed over the right items. Both mother and daughter felt relieved, knowing that having clean water again would make their daily life less difficult. After paying, they wrapped up their purchases and prepared to head home, hopeful that tomorrow everything could be fixed properly.
When they finally arrived home, Sung Luyen and her little daughter wasted no time. They carefully placed their bundles down, wiped the sweat from their brows, and immediately turned their attention to the broken water system. For days, the clean water pipe had been leaking badly, and without it, their daily life had become more difficult. The mother knelt down by the damaged section of the pipe, examining it closely. She ran her hand over the cracks and rusted joints, sighing softly. With calm determination, she began unscrewing the old, worn-out valve, her hands steady despite the challenge. Her daughter crouched beside her, watching intently. The little girl handed her the tools one by one, eager to help in any way she could. Working together, they carefully replaced the broken valve with the new one they had just purchased. The girl held the pipe in place while her mother tightened the fittings. Every turn of the wrench brought them closer to restoring clean running water. The sound of metal against metal echoed softly through their small yard, mixing with the songs of birds that had emerged after the rain. After securing the main valve, Sung Luyen moved on to check the rest of the pipeline. She patched up smaller leaks with strips of sealing tape, pressing them firmly to ensure no water would escape. Though her hands grew tired and her back ached from crouching, she refused to stop until the job was done. Finally, with everything tightened and sealed, the moment of truth came. Sung Luyen gently turned the new valve, and clear, fresh water began to flow steadily once again. Her daughter clapped her hands with joy, laughing as she splashed a little water on her face. Mother and daughter shared a smile of relief. Their hard work had paid off. Though it was just a simple repair, for them it meant security, comfort, and the reassurance that together they could overcome even the small struggles of everyday life. After finishing the water pipe repairs, Sung Luyen and her daughter gathered their tools and quickly made their way back to the carpenter's house. There, the wooden planks, carefully smoothed and polished by the carpenter, were already waiting for them. The mother and daughter were delighted, expressed their gratitude, and carefully lifted the planks, securing them firmly for the journey home. Although the road was still long and rough, their hearts were filled with excitement, knowing they were about to start building small wooden chairs for their home. In their eyes shone a quiet joy, mixed with anticipation for the work ahead. When they finally arrived back home, the afternoon sun was already casting a warm golden glow through the small window of their cottage. Without wasting any time, Sung Luyen and her little daughter began the task they had been looking forward to all day: building a small wooden chair together. Luyen carefully laid out the wooden planks they had prepared earlier, smoothing the edges with her hands to make sure there were no splinters. She picked up a handful of nails and positioned the first 2 pieces of wood. With a firm but steady hand, she began driving the nails in, the sound of each strike echoing through the simple home. It wasn't just noise, it was the sound of progress, of hope, being built piece by piece. Her daughter, though still very young, was determined to play her part. She crouched down beside her mother, holding the pieces tightly in place with her small hands so they wouldn't slip while her mother hammered. Sometimes she pressed her lips together with concentration, and other times she looked up at her mother with a wide, proud smile. Her mother would smile back, gently encouraging her with a nod before returning to the work. As the frame slowly began to take shape, they paused every now and then to check the angles and make sure everything stood firm. Luyen wiped the sweat from her forehead while her daughter, despite her small size, continued to hold the planks with surprising patience. She even tried tapping a nail herself, laughing when the hammer felt too heavy, and her mother chuckled softly, guiding her hand to show her how it's done. Minute by minute, the chair grew taller and sturdier. It was no longer just a pile of wood. It was becoming something meaningful, something useful. The little girl's eyes sparkled as she saw the backrest finally come together. She whispered, "It looks like a real chair now, Mama," and her mother's heart warmed at the words. By the time the final nail was hammered in, the chair stood proudly before them. Small, simple, yet beautiful. They both sat back to admire their creation, breathing a sigh of satisfaction. For Sung Luyen, this chair was not just furniture. It was a memory, a lesson in hard work, and a symbol of the bond between mother and daughter. Together, they had created more than a chair. They had built a piece of love that would last. Thank you so much for watching the story of Sung Luyen and her daughter. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so that more people can join us. Your support is the greatest motivation for us to keep creating simple yet heartwarming stories of rural life. See you in the next video.